Hi there. So today we're going to be sewing the card case, and I will be guiding you step by step. So first of all, what you're going to need is some material. For me, I'm using this soft shell and the cotton and some interfacing. I'm using the one for stretchy fabrics because I prefer it. Some elastic and of course threads, but it would be like a matching thread. Of course, you're going to need a pattern from the PDF and print it out. Some pins, scissors, something to mark some stuff. And when you have all that, now we can actually start to cutting. So first that you need to know that on the pattern you have this line that it's like a straight grain. So first of all, you will have to find on your fabric where do you have your straight grain. So now we are going to cut our pattern, and we have to mark everything on it. So with the instruction on the pattern, you have to also punch the holes for points and also cut the pattern on the marks. The marks are pretty important because you will have to, then you will know where to sew and where the, for the example, the elastic will go. As you can see here, now I'm just trying to figure out where I actually want a pattern and where it's actually stretching more and less. So on that note, as you can see, this will be my straight grain. Even though the soft shell is kind of a stretchy material, it always will stretch a little more on the one end and the other on the other end. So now I will be placing it, then pin it, and when I pin it, I'm just going to just get over it and just cut it, and like I said, mark everything you actually need. Once you've finished it, now it's time to cut the same pieces from the cotton fabric. Again, find your straight grain so it will set nicely when you're going to sew, and then do it all over again. And after that, you're going to cut only the main piece of the pattern with interfacing, because, and then you're going to fuse it with the cotton fabric because it's going to be more sturdy while sewing, and generally it just looks better. But Actually, it depends on the fabric you are going to use, because if you have more like stiff one, I think you really don't have to include interfacing, but it's really just up to you. After you are done cutting all your pieces, now it's time to cut your elastic to the length. And for this, you will have the length of the elastic in your instruction in the PDF that I added. And you have to this measurement, you have to add 1 centimeter for sewing and 1 centimeter additionally. I will tell you later why you need almost 4 centimeters more to the elastic, but I will talk about it later while we are going to sew, because it's you will see why it's going to be handy. First of all, you need to prepare your thread and get it on the bobby pin. And of course, you need a needle. For this particular sewing project, I'm using the 80 needle, the R, so it's like a pointy one needle. Yeah, so I think we can get started to just sew the first piece. And because it's going to be sewn onto the pattern, first of all you need to sew the little handle that is going to be attached. And for this, I'm just pressing first the outer edges, just because when I'm going to be closing it, it's going to be for me much easier to sew it on top. So you don't have to, wiggle around the fingers to just make it even. You can just do it earlier. It's kind of easier to do. And yes, mostly I'm not going to record like simple stuff of pressing with the iron, because it's really simple and I think you are going to get the end of the result. So as you can see here, now the both edges are pressed, so now we can begin to sew. We are going to sew this element from all sides, but leaving the gap so we can flip it around. And we are going to sew this on 7 millimeters, as the seam allowance was on the pattern. Please remember to try to make the rectangle as much as even as you can, because once you will flip it outside down, then you will actually see the final shape. And to be honest, the soft shell is not really the best for giving material. It's not going to be like all super crispy, but it's going to look good. And remember to line up these creases from when you were ironing. And as you can see here, we're going to pivot it and just stitch it to like this length. So as you can see, I am actually leaving a gap here to flip it upside down. Inside out, I'm sorry, it's inside out. So now we are going to have to trim the corners, fit nicely on the inside, because if you are not going to trim those corners, the material will just bulk itself and it's really not going to look good, and top stitching it will be really, really hard. So as you can see, I'm just trimming it right now. Here I'm just checking if the length of the little handle is the same as was on the pattern. For this size, it should be like 8 centimeters, and it's almost perfect. So I'm pretty happy with it. So now once you're satisfied with it, then you can flip it upside down, outside. Inside out. I mean, sometimes the language is not the best. Anyways, as you can see, it's not really that easy, and because it's a really, really small element, but just wiggle around, maybe try to use some tool, maybe some tweezers or maybe a needle. You see I have this thing. It's generally to make holes bigger, but it's really handy to work with. And as you will see now, the corners are getting to look as they should. Once you're happy with it, then you have to press it. And while you're going to press it, you have to remember so that the lining of this fabric is not going, it shouldn't come out so much. And you can always here just check the corners once again and just move it around so it would be as even, as nice as corners can be. And once you're done with it, then we are going to prepare our main piece, and we are going to sew in the elastic. And on the pattern pieces, you had the marks where the elastic should go. And now I will tell you why you have to have like 1 centimeter more than you should. Generally, if you're going to sew the elastic with the edge, then there is a high possibility of fraying, because once you flip it upside down, I'm not sure it's going to be enough space from the edge, from the stitching, so the elastic won't be fraying. And here I'm just securing the elastic. Now going back to this little handle, just top stitch the longer edges. I just stitch it like 1 millimeter from the edge, and in this step you are stitching it and also closing, and you don't have to back it up because you are going to be stitching on top of it anyway, because you're going to do a little rectangulars for the candle to sew it into the main fabric, into the Now, if you look closely at the pattern, you will have like this little marking on both edges and a center mark. So what you want to do, just draw the line and the center, and then find the center on the little handle and just place it in with a pin. And then what you're going to do is, like I previously was talking, you're going to stitch like on top of it only the little rectangles. It doesn't have to be much, like on the width. It should be like the width of your foot, pressing foot, nothing more. As you can see, I'm just marking it like a centimeter, but it's more or less, it should be just even on both sides. And remember to secure it at the end, so back and forth. And as you can see, now you have a little handle. It will be handy once it's finished. You will see how. Well, now we have to sew the actual thing. So just sew along, I will guess. The seam allowance is 1 centimeter, so you are putting one piece to the other. You are going to sew for 1 centimeter and then stop 1 centimeter before the edge. And once you are happy that with your distance, and it's actually 1 centimeter, you are going to cut the material below. So it will be easier to pivot the material. So as you can see, I'm pivoting and I'm lining it with the other part, and I'm sewing again and securing it at the end. Now you're going to do it on every piece. So here on both sides and on the lining also. Of course, we'll have to cut the corners so it will line inside nicely. And for the other half, you are going to do it opposite. So your short thingy is on the bottom, and you are sewing on top. It's still going to be the 1 centimeter from the edge, but from the edge of the fabric that is below. Still 1 centimeter seam allowance. And here you are going to also cut the material, but the top part, as you can see here, so then you can pivot it nicely. And you have to cut it like just before the needle starts. So it's still attached, but it got some moves moving. And then you align and just sew. And as I was saying, just cut the corners. So when you actually fold it, it will just be one to the other. It shouldn't align. It shouldn't go one on top of the other. It should be just touching each other. So you have to just trim it all down. Once you've done that, now it's time to do the exact same thing with the lining. Once you're done, then it's time to just flip it inside out and press it. Now, for the pressing, you want the seams to go on the opposite sides when you are going to sew the two parts together. Because if you put them in one direction, it will be too bulky and it's not going to look nice. Maybe it's going to be like more of a crease edge, but I find that the better way is to just do it this way, that the seam allowance will just do not align. Just now it's time to put it all together. And when we are going to sew it all together, because the cotton is more sturdy, and we're going to sew it on the cotton, so you have to have the piece from a soft shell fabric inside out, and the other part on the right side. So now you can just sew it all together. Now it's important to mark yourself. For me, I didn't add it on the pattern peaks because it's really up to you how big of a hole you want to leave here. I'm just doing like 8 centimeters wide because for me it's enough. But maybe if you're a beginner, you just want like a maybe bigger hole and then close it. And as you can see, I'm just showing you that the seam allowances shouldn't be on top. And now you just start to sew. And as I said, just put it that the soft shell would be underneath because it's a little bit more stretchy than the cotton fabric. So if you would do it the other way, then you would have a problem that you would have too much of the soft shell. Now, here is a bit of a tricky part because you have corners. So you are going to sew here with straight stitch to the point, to the mark that is on the pattern. And then you are going to pivot on the needle. You see the needle is inside, and then you are going to pivot it and go to the other mark. You can check if it's straight line and how you should go with the machine, and it will be straight line. Then you're going to pivot it a little bit more, and still we have a seam allowance of 1 centimeters. Now, if you want, you can pin it, everything, if it's easier for you. But for me, in those little projects, I just like to pin at the end. And I'm just sewing along. I'm trying to keep my material as steady as possible, so I wouldn't have too much of one on another layer, so it would align. And again, we have a corner. Now it's 1 centimeter from the edge. You can mark it, but if you can eyeball it, just do it. Now, remember that gap we marked? So now while you're going to sew, just sew until that point. Leave a gap for the opening, because you are going to be flipping it inside out, and then sew again. Remember of the marks here, the points, as the pattern's going. And then all you need to do is flip it inside out. But before you do that, remember that you have to cut all the corners. So we did cut the corners from the first part, but now you have to cut the inside corners, inner corners, and the outside corners, which I'm going to be showing in a second. Once you flip it inside out and you fix all the corners, they will look as good as possible. It's time to attach the lining to the main fabric. And to do that, you have to align the seams from the lining and the main fabric, like so. And then you are going to top stitch. And this part is a little bit of tricky, but once you do it, it's really, really easy. So you're trying your best so the corners will align and will be matched as much as possible. Then you're going to flip it because you are going to be sewing on the outer fabric. And so it would fit into under the machine. You have to just wiggle around and place it in a specific way. And as you can see, I'm going to be sewing on the left side, so I'm going to be top stitching. So in the inside, I'm stitching on the seam allowance. So you have to really, really be careful so that the both parts are really aligned. It's not going to be perfect. That's why we are sewing on the right side, because inside it doesn't really matter that much. But you have to just keep it as straight as possible so that these two seams align together. Once you've done that, it's time to iron it. So I didn't film it because you just have to do it yourself. You just try to make it the edges as crisp as possible so that the lining it's not going to go outside. It's not going to be as much as visible as you can see here. And now only thing that is left is to top stitch. And remember, while pressing it, press it that the opening will align together. So when you are going to top stitch, it's going to close it, but also look good, and it has to catch both layers. So now we are going to just top stitching it. You can give it a last press, but you're all done. Now it's all you have to do is just place the cards inside and enjoy your new tarot card case. For me, it's really convenient to have it because I can travel with it. It's not bulky. I can sleep under the pillow with it. It's really just convenient and easy, and to be honest, people just really like it. And on top of that, you can do like the 3-card spread instantly on your cover card. So as you can see, it fits perfectly. You have a little bit of room because, you know, it's cards and it just have to have a little bit of room. Now, for the first time while you are putting it all together, you have to wiggle around because you have to attach to the shape. But other than that, it's all good. And as you can see, it covers everything, and you have nice little bundle of cards, and it looks really nice.